Welcome back to our Jerusalem studio at InfoLive TV for our weekly debate. With me, Jerrold Kessel, Senior Political Analyst, and Yoni Ben Menahem, Director General of Israel Radio. Our topic for today, Syria. Jerrold, it was reported Wednesday that Israel confirmed the existence of a third party relaying messages between Israel and Syria. First off, who do you think it is? And secondly, what, in your opinion, what are the chances of resumption of direct and overt talks between Israel and Syria, taking into account that the Syrians are demanding some sort of something similar to what they say Rabin gave them in 1995?
As far as we understand, and I think it's pretty sure, that the third party or the intermediary, the go-between are the Turks. The Turkish government of Tayyip Erdogan has long been trying to play a more significant role in the Middle East, in the Arab-Israel conflict, and would be pleased to have their status upgraded. Israel's not all that keen, but possibly would go along if it saw interest in the unveiling of a new avenue of talks between Damascus and Jerusalem. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit surprised that Israel hasn't taken President Assad up on his offer, at least to throw it back into his court and to say this is something that, yes, we'd like to investigate. It seems that Israel has no interest in the status quo being preserved, but would need to look for avenues to change the status quo in terms of its own national interests.
Prime Minister Ormet has sent many secret messages to the Syrians, and the last intervention of the Turkish foreign minister is very effective, and we can see it by the speech of President Assad, who didn't mention his name, but he was relating to it very seriously, and this is a very good development. The basic question is, what is going to be the outcome of this messages or negotiations, secret negotiations? First of all, it's good because as a result of what is happening, I think that the danger for a war between Israel and Syria in this summer, there were many press reports about such a possibility. These chances are lowering now, and I think it's easing or diffusing the tension between Israel and Syria. So this is a very positive development. The real question is President Assad really interested in peace, or his speech or what he said was just a rhetoric of peace? We don't have any evidence that he is really interested in going into serious negotiations with Israel like his father did in the last round of talks in Shepherdstown 5 or 6 years ago. And we have to see the fact that he's coming out publicly and demanding that Israel will commit in writing that Israel is willing to give him all of the Golan Heights is something which is unacceptable in negotiations. And you cannot put preconditions before the starting of the negotiation. What is needed is that he will announce that he's willing to go back to the negotiation table, and Israel will do the same, and there, on the negotiating table, they will negotiate and solve the problems, and not through the media.
The axis of evil, the so-called axis of evil, President Ahmadinejad of Iran is, as we speak, in Syria on an official visit. This relates to what Yoni just spoke about. Do you think Assad's overtures, peace overtures, are merely a smokescreen to alleviate some of the Western pressure on Syria, or is he genuinely interested in rapprochement with the West and peace with Israel?
I think Israel should be testing, so should the United States be testing Assad at his word. Exactly that. It could well be that Assad's real interest is to get the Americans, get the West off his back, especially in terms of the investigation into the Hariri assassination in Lebanon and the implication that Syria might have been involved in that. But the thing that Israel needs to do, if Israel decides that it's in its national interest, a settlement a peace settlement with Syria is in its national interest, it should do everything possible to try to reach that goal, and not to say, well, it's unacceptable, this is a term that's unacceptable, and kill it off at the start. Israel has to establish what is its national interest in terms of relations with Syria. Is it taking Syria out of the axis of the so-called axis of evil, and trying to bring Syria into a different kind of a realm, as, let's say, you have peace with Egypt. Even if peace with Syria was in that realm, wouldn't that not be in Israel's interest? Would it not be indeed in Israel's interest to set a counter precondition, as Assad has set for the return of the whole Golan, of say, show us how you are withdrawing your support from Hezbollah. Israel, that is a fundamental interest at this stage in Israel's overall strategic array. Divorcing Syria from Iran, Hezbollah, and also, in a way, neutralizing Hezbollah and neutralizing the ongoing Syrian support of Hezbollah. Syria can't have it both ways. Israel should be testing Syria to make sure which way it's intending to go.
On the backdrop of the widening Shiite-Sunni rift in the Middle East, what part do you think Assad's Alawite religious affiliation plays in his connection with Iran?
There's no doubt that Assad, I don't think it's a religious problem, because Assad is more interested in the alliance with the Iranians and with Hezbollah. Not because they are Shiites, but because they have a lot of power in the region, and they're anti-Americans and anti-Israelis, and this is the way he's going. I think it will be very difficult for Assad to divorce himself from Iran and the Hezbollah, and this is not actually what is important for Israel. I think what's more important for Israel is that we will know that there will be such security arrangements on the Golan Heights that will ensure the safety of Israel. This is one aspect of what is needed from the Syrian. The other aspect is the normalization between Israel and Syria, that it will be a real peace, not a cold peace like the peace we have with Egypt. And this is the real test of Assad. I think that the Israeli demand that he will divorce himself from the axis with the Iranians and the Hezbollah is not practical and not relevant, because he will never do that.
Jerrold, divorce or the continuation of this marriage of convenience?
I think the key question is not just diffusing tensions. I think the time has come. We've been living with diffusing of tensions for 40 years in a sense, since 1967. In other words, what I'm saying is it's not enough just to be dampening down tension, saying, okay, we'll look to peace talks. We've been into that realm for a long time. There needs to be a more dramatic change of mindset in Israeli strategic thinking to say, this is what is the Israeli national interest. The Israeli national interest is to diffuse tensions long time, not just to diffuse tensions temporarily.
This is true, but I think what should be decided first is whether Israel wants to go on the Israeli-Palestinian track or on the Israeli-Syrian track, because we know from our past experience when Ehud Barak was prime minister that Israel could not negotiate at the same time on both tracks.
Why not?
Because it failed, because you need a strong leadership in Israel, a strong government to do that, which we don't have now. And you have to make a lot of concessions on both tracks, and this is very difficult for the Israeli public to accept. I think that this is the right timing for the Israeli-Syrian track, because on the Palestinian-Israeli track there is no hope because of what happened in Gaza. So if we want to be practical, let's concentrate on the Israeli-Syrian track. There, maybe there is a chance.
I think Yoni is absolutely right about the complications of negotiating simultaneously for absolute peace arrangements on two fronts, Syria and the Syrian and the Palestinian. Israel's security, fundamental security, national security interests are best served by a mindset change which would have to take into account the Israeli public's attitude. In other words, preparing the Israeli public and changing the Israeli public attitude, not on whether this border will be changed, or they will have to move back 10 kilometers, or whether the border with Syria will be on this line or on that line, and so forth, but on the concept of Israel relating to the whole the future conflict with the entire Arab world. What I'm saying then is that there should be a much more adventurous response to what was conceived by what's the so-called Saudi plan of the Arab League, of saying this is the time to set the parameters for changing the relationship between Israel and the Arab world.
You spoke of a change of mindset, taking into account the Winograd report, the State Comptroller's report on Olmert, and his rock-bottom popularity. Do you really think he will make such a move, which may be unpopular in the Israeli public?
As Yoni said, it's not easy for any Israeli prime minister. It's not easy particularly not easy for a extremely weak Israeli prime minister. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't be trying, because I think Ehud Olmert, for instance, he produced the most revolutionary statement in 40 years in Israeli political thinking, when he said, prior to when Ariel Sharon even went ahead and pulled Israel out of Gaza, he said, the time has come no longer to be waiting around and saying, whether the Arabs really want to make peace, whether Assad is offering this or that. We will decide what's in our national interest, what are going to be our borders, what is the Israel for which we will fight, for which we will battle on every front. He abandoned that in the wake of the Lebanon war. There's no reason he should have, quite frankly. He could still revive it.
I think the problem is that as a result of the Lebanese war, Israeli-Lebanese war, and also the Israeli withdrawal from South Lebanon in 2000, and also we're talking now about 2 years for disengagement from Gaza. I think that the lesson that Israel learned, or maybe the Israeli public learned, is that unilateral steps are not necessarily a good thing for Israel. It looked like this in the beginning. This is what Ehud Barak did in South Lebanon. This is what Olmert did and Sharon did in Gaza. But it didn't serve the purpose of peace. The outcome was very, very bad for Israel. I think everybody understands that now. Bashar Assad might be a good partner, a good address, and we should try this track now, because we cannot sit still and just wait for something to happen and not look for peace. We have to take the initiative into our own hands and now try and reach something with the Syrians, at least the resumption of the negotiations.
Do you think Olmert will make such an effort, or play it safe and sort of wait till the end of his term?
I think Olmert is very serious in his efforts to try and resume the negotiation with Syria. Is looking for a starter, something that will allow him to go into these resumptions of talks. But the problem is that so far we didn't get any sign from the Syrians, as far as I know, and I'm updated. We didn't get any positive signs from the Syrians that they really mean business. Maybe the Turks will succeed in the mediation. Maybe it will happen in a few weeks or in a few months. But I'm sure that once it will happen, Israel will be very serious about it.
And the Israeli public, you're convinced that even a government as weak as the present one would be able to convince the Israeli public of the merits of say a reform?
I think it's a good timing now to say to the Israeli public, and they maybe will accept it, if we will not talk about the concessions and say, look, we're going to give up the whole Golan Heights. And the Israeli public doesn't know what is the price for it. So I think just to come out and say to the Israeli public, look, we want to try this track and we have to do something for peace, and let's try now the Syrians, I think the Israeli public will accept it. I think they will.
Thank you very much, Yoni Ben Menahem, Jerrold Kessel. Thank you.